My kids blame me for our divorce because I didn't glow up for my husband. Now they're demanding I go back to my old self or lose them forever. I, 53F, have been divorced from my ex-husband, Larry, 54M, for 6 years. Larry and I have two adult children, Steve, 27M, and Carla, 25F. Larry and I met in college when we were both electrical engineering students. We were both very much on the nerdy side and looked the part, but were very attracted to each other. So I thought anyway. We got married soon after we graduated and both worked as engineers, but after a few years, Larry decided he wanted to go to law school, to become a patent lawyer. In order to look the lawyer part, Larry underwent a major glow-up during this time on pretty much all levels. Tailored clothes, fancy haircuts, designer accessories like watches, etc., along with working out to trade his dad bod for a lean gym bod. During this time, I was raising our small children while taking care of about 95% of household matters because of his long working hours, all while working full-time. I admit I did not glow up along with Larry. My own appearance has always been on the plainer side. I'm not overweight, but a bit stocky. 5'5", 140 hours lbs. Simply cut hair, glasses, practical clothes, not much makeup. Larry loved me as is for about the first decade of our relationship. But after he started working as a lawyer, he started to become drawn to more conventionally attractive women and had several affairs. When I pressed for counseling, he said that the issues were things like my big nose and post-baby tummy pooch, not things I could fix with a simple makeover. I was getting organized to ask for a divorce when Carla was hit by a car while riding her bike. She survived and is fine now, but needed several years of intensive surgeries and rehab. In order to provide a unified front for Carla and Steve, Larry and I agreed to stay married and be as cordial as possible. He continued to see other women during this time, but by this time I was past trying to get him to be faithful. We did separate and divorce after Carla went off to college. Larry is remarried now to a much younger woman, 33F. In the past couple years, I have actually decided to focus more on myself, including my appearance. Now that my children are grown and out of the house and I don't have to worry about tiptoeing around a difficult husband, I finally have time and resources to do so. I didn't get a nose job or other plastic surgery like Larry had wanted, but I did update and color my hair, started working out more, lost about 15 pounds, got a new wardrobe, and actually started dating. I don't have a steady partner yet, but regularly go to age-appropriate singles events and go on dates. Unfortunately, my children detest the new me. In particular, they blame me for the divorce and are angry that I didn't glow up to accommodate Larry, saying I was too selfish and lazy to do so when it mattered. My son Steve is getting married soon and says he is too angry to invite me to the wedding. Carla has gone low contact with me. I had great relationships with both of them until I started my own glow-up process a couple years ago, which was a few years after Larry and I finalized our divorce. Steve and Carla have told me that the only way to fix this, the only thing that would be fair, is to go back to the way I was before. Meaning, stop coloring my hair, dress in my former plain frumpy way, and stop dating. They say they are most upset about the dating and that it's not fair for me to be looking for a new partner. So, ATA for everything I have done here, for not improving my appearance until after I got divorced. I really don't think Larry would have been faithful to me no matter how much I twisted myself in knots. I felt I did the best I could given the energy and resources I had, and while it may seem selfish, I do believe I deserve to have my own life now. But I am open to other opinions if I have done something wrong here. Update 1. It's been a couple of months since I last posted, and I wanted to provide an update. First off, thank you to everyone who reached out with support, tough love, and advice. I wasn't expecting such a massive response, and I was overwhelmed with the different perspectives. I've been doing a lot of thinking and trying to work through everything. To start, I took the advice of several commenters who suggested that I try to open up more conversations with Steve and Carla. I know they're adults, but they're still my kids, and I don't want our relationship to be stuck in this awful place. I've always believed that open communication is key, but I'll admit that I was so hurt and blindsided by their reactions that I wasn't able to hear them fully at first. So I reached out to Steve and Carla separately, asking if they'd be willing to sit down and talk, really talk, without judgment or anger. Carla agreed right away, while Steve was more reluctant, but eventually they both agreed to meet. The conversation with Carla was eye-opening. She told me that she feels like I've become a different person overnight and that it scares her. She admitted that she's worried I'm going to change so much that I won't be the mom she remembers. The one who was always there, always dependable, always the rock. I tried to explain that the core of who I am hasn't changed. Yes, I've made some external changes, but I'm still me. I'm still the mom who loves her kids more than anything. But I also reminded her that I deserve to feel good about myself, just like anyone else. Carla also dropped a bit of a bombshell. She told me that part of the reason she's been so distant is that Larry and his new wife, let's call her Linda, have been pushing a narrative that I'm going through a midlife crisis and that I've become selfish. Carla didn't want to believe it, but she was struggling to reconcile the mom she knew with the mom she sees now. I was floored. I didn't realize that Larry and Linda were actively influencing her opinion of me. Carla admitted that it's been confusing for her, and she's been pulling away because she didn't know how to process everything. We ended up crying and hugging it out. It was a really emotional conversation, but I think it was what we both needed. Carla told me that she needs some time to process everything, but she promised to work on not letting other people's opinions cloud her judgment of me. She also admitted that she was wrong to give me an ultimatum about reverting to my old self, and she's willing to try to accept this new phase of my life. The conversation with Steve was harder. He's still very angry, and it took a lot to even get him to sit down with me. He told me that he feels like I abandoned the family when I started focusing on myself. He feels betrayed that I didn't fight harder to keep the marriage intact and that my selfishness is what tore everything apart. It was really painful to hear, especially because I know how much I sacrificed during my marriage to make things work, even when they clearly weren't. I tried to explain my perspective, that I didn't abandon anyone, that I was just trying to survive in a situation where I felt completely unloved and unappreciated. I told him that staying in a loveless marriage wasn't something I could do anymore, and that it wasn't fair to any of us, including him and Carla, to pretend everything was okay when it wasn't. Steve wasn't as receptive as Carla. He kept coming back to the idea that if I had glowed up earlier, maybe the family wouldn't have fallen apart. I could see that this belief is deeply ingrained in him, probably reinforced by Larry. I realized that he's looking for someone to blame, and right now that someone is me. I asked Steve if he's truly happy with the idea of cutting me out of his life because of my appearance or the fact that I'm dating. I asked him if that's really what he wants, or if he's just so hurt that he doesn't know how else to react. He didn't have an answer for me. We ended the conversation with a promise to keep talking, but I could tell he's not ready to forgive me or even see my side of things yet. This has been so hard, you guys. I feel like I'm mourning the relationship I used to have with my kids while trying to build something new from the ashes. I'm trying to stay strong and not let their anger push me back into a version of myself that I don't want to be anymore. But it's tough. I don't want to lose them, but I also don't want to lose myself in the process. After these conversations, I've decided to give them some space. I'm going to keep focusing on myself, but I'm also going to keep the lines of communication open. I love my kids more than anything, and I hope that with time they'll be able to see that I'm still the same person, just a little more polished on the outside. I also had a talk with a therapist to help process everything. I realized that while I've been focusing on the physical aspects of my glow up, I also need to work on the emotional and mental aspects. The therapist has been helping me to navigate these changes and to cope with the guilt and pain that have come with them. Anyway, I know this update isn't as positive as I would have liked, but I'm hoping it's the start of something better. I'll keep you all posted as things progress. Thank you again for all your support. It means the world to me right now. Update 2. I'm back with another update. I wasn't sure if I should post again, but so many of you have been incredibly supportive, and I felt like I owed it to you to share what's been happening since my last post. First of all, I've continued seeing my therapist, and it's been really helpful in getting me to reflect on not just my relationship with Steve and Carla, but also my relationship with myself. One thing that's become clear is that I've spent so many years putting everyone else's needs ahead of my own that I almost lost sight of who I am. This glow up has been about more than just changing my appearance. It's been about reclaiming a sense of identity that I lost somewhere along the way. With that said, I've also made some big decisions regarding my kids. I realize that while I can't control how they feel or what they think, I can control how I respond and how I live my life. I decided that I'm not going to apologize anymore for choosing to take care of myself. I'm done with the guilt trips and the constant second guessing. I'm their mother, yes, but I'm also a person in my own right, and I deserve to be happy. Now, on to the big news. After our conversations, Carla and I have been slowly rebuilding our relationship. It's not perfect, and it's not the same as it was before, but we're making progress. We've started having regular phone calls, and she's even agreed to come visit me for a weekend soon. She told me that she misses me and that she's willing to try to accept the changes I've made, even if they're hard for her to understand right now. It was such a relief to hear that, and it gives me hope that we can find a new normal that works for both of us. But Steve? Things with Steve have taken a different turn. I mentioned before that he was planning his wedding and had told me he didn't want me there. Well, after a lot of back and forth, I decided to respect his wishes. As much as it hurt, I realized that forcing my way into his wedding wouldn't do any good and would only cause more tension. I sent him a heartfelt letter explaining my decision and expressing my love for him, and then I took a step back. The wedding happened last month. I wasn't there, but I heard through family that it was a beautiful event. It broke my heart to miss such an important day in my son's life, but I knew I had to let him come to terms with things on his own. I've continued to reach out periodically, but I'm giving him the space he's asked for. I'm hopeful that one day he'll be ready to talk again, but for now, I'm focusing on the relationships I do have and on my own well-being. One thing that's really helped during this difficult time has been connecting with other women who've gone through similar experiences. I joined a few online communities and even started attending a local support group for divorced women. It's been incredibly validating to hear from others who've faced the same struggles and to realize that I'm not alone. These connections have reminded me that it's okay to put myself first sometimes, and that doing so doesn't make me a bad mother or a bad person. I've also been diving deeper into some hobbies that I used to love but had let fall by the wayside. I've picked up painting again, something I hadn't done since my college days, and it's been a wonderful outlet for all the emotions I've been dealing with. I've even started taking a class on weekends to improve my skills, and it's been a great way to meet new people and build a life that's truly my own. As for Larry and Linda, I've decided to limit contact with them as much as possible. It's clear to me now that they've been more involved in my kids' opinions of me than I initially realized, and I don't need that negativity in my life. I'm polite and civil when we have to interact, but I'm no longer going out of my way to engage with them. This boundary has been crucial for my mental health, and I'm glad I finally set it. There's one more thing I want to share. Recently, I met someone. I wasn't looking for a relationship, but sometimes life has a way of surprising you. He's a kind, intelligent man who seems to really appreciate me for who I am, not just for how I look. We're taking things slow, and I'm trying not to overthink it, but it feels nice to be seen and valued again. It's early days, so I don't want to say too much, but I'm cautiously optimistic about where things might go. I know there are still challenges ahead, especially with Steve, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm on the right path. I'm learning to trust myself again, to make decisions that are right for me, and to let go of the guilt that's been weighing me down for so long. It's not easy, but I'm getting there, one step at a time. Thank you again to everyone who's been following my story and offering support. Your words have meant more to me than you know. I'll update again if there's anything new to share, but for now, I'm focusing on building this new chapter of my life and finding peace with the choices I've made. Update 3. It's been a while since my last update, and a lot has happened, so I thought I'd fill you all in. I wasn't sure if I'd post again, but this community has been such a big part of my journey, and I felt like I needed to share where I'm at now. First off, let's start with the biggest news. Steve and I have started talking again. I know, I'm as surprised as anyone. After the wedding, I didn't hear from him for a long time. I tried to respect his space and didn't push, but I also made it clear that I was here whenever he was ready to talk. I continued sending the occasional message or card just to remind him that I love him and that I'm still his mom, no matter what. A few weeks ago, out of the blue, I got a call from Steve. I'll admit my heart was in my throat when I saw his name on my phone. I wasn't sure if he was calling to yell at me or what, but I answered, trying to stay calm. To my shock, he apologized. He told me that he's been doing a lot of thinking and that he realizes now that he's been unfair to me. He said that he was angry and confused and didn't know how to deal with all the changes, so he lashed out at the person he felt safest with, me. It was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. We talked for hours that night. Really talked. More than we had in years. Steve admitted that Larry had been feeding him a lot of negativity about me, and in his hurt and anger, he bought into it. But after the wedding and some distance from all the drama, he started to see things more clearly. He realized that I wasn't the villain in this story, and that maybe, just maybe, I deserved some happiness too. I can't tell you how much that conversation meant to me. We're not back to where we were before all this started, and I'm okay with that. Relationships evolve, and sometimes they go through rough patches. What matters is that we're both willing to work on it, to rebuild what was broken. Steve even invited me to have dinner with him and his new wife, which feels like a huge step forward. I'm nervous, but also excited to meet her and start fresh. As for Carla, things are continuing to improve. She came to visit me, as planned, and we had a wonderful weekend together. We talked a lot about everything that's happened, and she admitted that she's still working through her feelings, but she's in a much better place now. We spent time just enjoying each other's company, and it felt like we were reconnecting in a really meaningful way. Carla also told me that she's proud of me for standing my ground and not reverting to my old self just to please others. That was huge for me to hear, because it felt like she was finally seeing me as a whole person, not just as her mom. Now, on to the relationship front. Things with the man I mentioned in my last update have been going really well. We've continued seeing each other, and it's becoming more serious. He's met Carla, and she really liked him, which was a relief. I haven't introduced him to Steve yet. One step at a time. But I'm hopeful that when the time is right, it will go smoothly. He's been a wonderful support through all of this, and I'm so grateful to have found someone who truly appreciates me for who I am. In terms of my personal growth, I feel like I've turned a corner. The therapy has continued to be a game changer for me. I'm learning to let go of the guilt that's haunted me for so long and to embrace the idea that it's okay to put myself first sometimes. I've also been more intentional about setting boundaries, not just with Larry and Linda, but with everyone in my life. It's been empowering to realize that I don't have to accept treatment that makes me feel less than. One thing that's really stood out to me during this process is how much I've grown as a person. I'm not the same woman I was when I was married to Larry, and that's a good thing. I found strength in myself that I didn't know I had, and I've learned to trust my instincts again. I'm proud of the progress I've made, and I'm excited to see where this new chapter takes me. I also want to take a moment to thank this community again. Your support, your advice, your willingness to listen. It's meant everything to me. I don't think I would have come this far without knowing that there were people out there who understood what I was going through and who were rooting for me. You've all played a part in my healing, and I'll always be grateful for that. As I look ahead, I know there will still be challenges. Rebuilding relationships, especially with my children, isn't something that happens overnight. But I'm hopeful. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm on solid ground. I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. And that feels incredible. I'm not sure if I'll need to update again, but if something major happens, I'll definitely let you all know. For now, I'm going to keep focusing on myself, my relationships, and my happiness. I'm excited to see what the future holds, and I'm ready to embrace it with open arms. Thank you all for being there for me through this journey. I can't tell you how much it's meant to me. Here's to new beginnings and finding peace with the past.